I'm not trying to be a number one best-selling author who makes a living by nothing but books. But I got all this information in my head. I want to put it into one single place, and it'll have all the purpose in the world after that. In the worst case scenario, it's going to let me meet a Stuart Bell one day, and it's going to let me be on a podcast, and it's going to introduce me to other people I know. It's going to add a little ounce of credibility. It's going to give me opportunity to, when you're creating content later, you've got a place to pull from.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Book More Show. It's Stuart Bell here, and today joined by Charles Alexandra. Charles, how's it going, buddy?
How are you, my friend?
Good, thank you. Uh, we were just joking before we started recording that this looks like a bit of a before and after show on the cloning of the of the podcast people. We couldn't decide who was before and who was after. So
That's right. It's entirely up to any viewer that might be get a chance to see this later if they feel like I'm before or I'm after.
leave a note in the comments.
Yeah, please.
I'm excited by this one because I think this is going to be a great example of the whole purpose of trying to write a book is to start conversations. And we started a
Yep.
conversation through a LinkedIn connection. And
Yep.
then we jumped on a call like we would do in the real world if we bumped into people in the
Hmm.
street. And that call went great. And then we thought, hey, we should do a podcast and share this more with the with everyone that's listening in. So I think the bridge between the active conversations that we're trying to use a book to engender and start and what actually led to this conversation, I think it's that real world example of all of these tools, all of these techniques, all of these methodologies that we're trying to follow up are really just to get into conversation with another real human being. And that's what's happened here. So let's get everyone up to speed. Share a little bit about your background and the organization and what you do for people, just for getting
Sure.
people up to speed.
So I have been a one-on-one business coach for 17 years. I do this as a full-time gig. I have coached well over 2,000 people. And during that time, I even managed to start my own business. Started it as a side hustle and grew it into a full-time business, creating explainer videos for busy professionals. The little 90-second animations you'll see on somebody's site that says, Meet Stuart. Stuart's problem is blah, blah, blah. And then we solve it in a short period of time. So what I learned throughout that process was I was my own worst business client. So, a little tip outside of any of this, feel free to hire other people to help tell you what to do, even if you know what to do, because I could not listen to myself. So I had to go hire a business coach and then go get in a business coaching program to do the things I already knew I needed to do. And from that, I realized, wow, I was able to actually practice what I preach, started a business while I was working a full-time job and managed to grow it to its own full-time thing. I never even moved beyond that now, that process not just helped me write a book, but launch my own podcast, start my own group coaching program, all within less than 40 hours a week. But more to your point, the book I wrote was Start Now, Quit Later: How to Start and Grow a Business Without Quitting Your Full-Time Job. And I was able to not only use myself as an example, but golly, man, you could imagine, Stuart, the number of people I've met with over the years, not just people that own businesses, but I mean with a lot of people that want to start a business.
Right.
And the biggest issue I ran into throughout that entire period, and I still do this, people that want to hit that quote unquote midlife crisis mode, and you and I spoke, were roughly the same age. Your midlife crisis doesn't mean you got to be my age, but you got to that point where you didn't want to walk into the cube one more time. You didn't want to log in. You didn't want to put the cover on your TPS reports. You just wanted to quit. You wanted to do whatever, you wanted to be the guy that was outside annoying you mowing the yard because it looked like that landscaper was having way more fun than you were in the meetings. And I would have people that kept quitting their job to start a business they didn't know much about. So all of that to say, the background for anybody watching, listening, I use that experience to help me write a book. That book has helped me create a ton of conversation and introduce me to people I wouldn't talk to normally.
Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? It's that sharing an experience and interrupting or interjecting in someone's day as they're going about and the thoughts they're having to be able to bridge that thought in their head to an action that they can take that leads to a
Yeah.
conversation with you. The reason that books are so effective is because it very very subtly starts that conversation without being sales, that you're giving something first,
Yeah.
you're sharing some information, some knowledge, but orchestrating and leading that conversation towards whatever the next step is. So for you, the coaching business, like I say, you've been doing this for many years now, the
Hmm.
experience of starting your own business and taking that to the point that it's successful, which resonates more with people that you're dealing with as clients? Do they resonate more with the fact that you've been through the process of a more traditional business, or are they looking for someone who's been coaching for many years and
Ooh.
has that type of experience?
Man, that is a great question. So, the pat answer I used to give before I started my own business is that people really want someone else who's had their sleeves rolled up. They've been there, done that, and they can, practice what they preach and teach it from the trenches and insert buzzword here. But man, I can tell you, after having launched my own business and done all of that, I'm surprised about how unimpressed people are by it. Like when I tell them I've done this myself, they seem to smile and nod along. And I get, I think they really want my coaching experience. The fact that
Right.
I've worked with so many other people and seen so many other different scenarios, the fact that I've done it myself is helpful. And this would probably be advice way outside the realm of what, I don't know, maybe by watching and listening, because I think a lot of people get imposter syndrome. They think, well, I haven't done it, or it shouldn't be me, or I can't give my
Right.
voice. Man, I'm telling you, people are more impressed with the fact that you can teach them something more than they are that you've done it.
Yeah.
Give you a couple of examples that has changed my mind on this. I've got three kids, ages. Oh God, dude, Stuart, we had one turn 16 yesterday. My
Right.
oldest daughter, uh, she's now driving. Golly. Anyways, 16, 13, and soon to be 12. When we go see the pediatrician every year, the pediatrician gives you advice, the kids should drink more milk, take more vitamins, whatever. And the fact that they tell me this based off all their other patients is what makes me feel a little more at ease. Not necessarily their degree. I assume they all have a degree. And then when they tell me about their kids, that helps solidify it. But if they brought me in and just told me what they do with their kids and not mention any other patients, I'd be like, man, that's great. But what you do with your two kids is not really relevant to me.
Yeah.
And then maybe another example, and this might be more stateside, and I'm sure you could give let's say you could give your football examples versus my football examples, but football in the States, some of the best coaches in both the college and National Football League level are not guys who are Hall of Famers. In fact, very rarely is that the case. Most of them played high school, they set the bench in college, but they were great teachers. And a lot of the guys who were in the trenches and were great players make terrible coaches.
Yeah.
So all of that to say, to answer your question is that, yeah, people are, that helps add to their credibility, so to speak. But man, I think they're more reliant on the fact that I'm a coach and know how to teach them something.
I think there's the case, the point that you made about people having imposter syndrome, and we'll hear people saying, I don't know what I would write about, or all
Yeah.
of these books have been written before, which is
Yeah.
even a funnier thing to say because that's true, but the majority of the planet's been around for a long time and people have been doing things for a long time. So the majority
Sure.
of things have been done before.
Yeah. Everything's been done. It's done.
Right.
But you,
But
you're
no
allowed to
one's,
do it.
right. Yeah. No one's done it in the way that you're talking about it.
Oh,
And even that's less relevant than the point in time of the person who you're talking to. That person is talking to you. They're not cross-shopping all of the other people in the planet who have also done it. It's the conversation with you at this moment. And I think that ties in with the point that you were making. People make the decision that they want to work with you. And then as they're continuing down the path to do that work, they're happily staying on the path unless there's anything that scares them away or knocks them off the path. So it's less that they're trying to positively confirm that every step is like when you jump on a flight, you
sure.
don't go through the diligence of check the safety logs, check the pilot's record, check where the flight attendants were out the night
Yeah.
before. You're happy to go through each of the steps through TSA, through check-in, through to the gate, onboarding. All of that is you're happy to continue down. But if you saw something that scared you, if you saw the pilot drinking, if you saw the wing hanging off, then you might want to get off the plane.
Right.
The same doing business with you. They've made that decision that, oh yeah, Charles is the person I want to work with. This experience in the background is matching my expectations of what's been done. I want the answer to be yes, this is going to be the right solution. So it's only if something knocks them off that path that they get pushed away, not necessarily
Correct.
validating every step. So this whole idea of I don't know what I would talk about, or why would they believe me? People are
Well,
happy to believe you if you are believable.
that's correct. And you said it very well that maybe that book has quote unquote been written, but it hadn't been written by you and it doesn't have your examples and it doesn't have your way of looking at it that might unlock something in someone else's brain that, maybe they're similar to you. In your separate topic that I'm sure you've hit on, but even if you have doubts, that there's other people around you that believe in you, and better yet, there's also other people around you that want to, I don't know. They want to add a little more doubt to it, and it's your job not to listen to them. Even my dear old dad, who I, thanked in the book and wrote the first chapter and last chapter about him. Well, I just don't know. Well, why are you going to write a book? Well, son, I think that book's already been written. Well, and he, how many copies did you sell? I said, look, let's get this through your head. I'm not trying to be a number one best-selling author who makes a living by nothing but books, but I got all this information in my head. I want to put it into one single place, and it'll have all the purpose in the world after that. In the worst case scenario, it's going to let me meet a Stuart Bell one day, and it's going to let me be on a podcast, and it's going to introduce me to other people I know. It's going to add a little ounce of credibility. It's going to give me opportunity to, when you're creating content later, you've got a place to pull from. But most
Right.
importantly, like what you tell people, it's a piece of the puzzle that gets you into real conversations that that wouldn't normally do it otherwise.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that to say you're whoever your dear old mom or dad is, or neighbor, or dumb kid you went to a grade school with makes a dumb Facebook comment. Oh, look at this over now. Yeah, they're not writing the book. It's easy to stand on the sidelines and make reinforce your self-esteem issues, but don't follow Stewart's advice. You don't have to be the expert. The book, yeah, all the books have been written. All of them have been written. You're not writing the first one, uh, but you need to write it.
Yeah. I think as well, it's interesting. I mean, we talk a lot these days, people talk a lot these days about AI and the future of marketing and uh, being in front of people in all of the different channels where they are, knowing your audience, knowing who the people are that you're talking to, understanding the job of work of the book is to start a conversation and not to become a bestseller. So detaching yourself from all of these distractions, the fact that content over the next couple of years is going to exponentially increase in terms of quantity, and
Yep.
it's going to broadly increase in terms of quality as well, because
Oh,
the
it's a hot mess now.
right, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
there's a lot of noise, but the problem is that if you don't contribute, um, if in the nicest possible way, if you don't contribute to that noise and stake your claim in this noisy environment, you'll get swallowed up by everyone else who is
yeah,
making that claim. It only takes the thousand Raven fans type approach of knowing
that's
that
right.
you're trying to talk with that small niche of people who would be happy to be your clients if they weren't getting pulled in a different direction.
Correct.
So looking for these ways of being in front of people as many times as possible so that when they're ready, you're the person that they're looking at. I think the book is a valuable tool in that arsenal because it does create that volume of content that,
Hmm.
as you say, you can pull from in multiple different ways and not get distracted by the bestseller or caring what other people
Sure.
think about the content. When you were writing, when you were creating it, you mentioned that all of this knowledge in your head from the experience, you
Hmm.
wanted to bring it together. How did you go about deciding what was in the book and what wasn't in the book? Was there a kind of, did you go from a top-down approach of, I've got all of this content, where does it fit? Or from a outline first and then pull the information that fits a
Sure.
very specific outline?
So for me, I kept thinking about, man, I've got to find a way to teach these people on how to write a book, or not how to write, how to start a business without, jumping ship. Uh, and remind me here in a second, and I know this is not proper podcast etiquette, but I won't remember. But remind me here in a minute that even after you write that book, you're not stuck to the book. What
Right.
I do now is related to the book, but isn't specifically tied to the book. The book's still very helpful in what I do now.
Yeah.
But in answering your question, the outline for a lot of your listeners, viewers, whatever, odds are whatever topic you have, this isn't the first iteration of it. Like if you're getting ready to write this book, this isn't the first time you scribbled something on paper, created a slide deck, had a conversation. You already have some steps in place. You already have a sense of order. So for me, I've taught a workshop on how do you start a business. Now, what I didn't have in there is how to do it while you have a full-time job, but I already had the outline. So from there, I just wrote the book that I like to read. And the book I like to read, and this might make me sound like a dullard, but I like to read books with short chapters because that makes me feel really smart. Uh,
Sense of progress.
yeah, and I like to hear a lot of stories and then have a lesson tied to it. Okay, so that's exactly how I approached it. I had these basically three, segments. Everything in my world is marketing, management, and financial. So I
Right.
thought, okay, well, about how many bullet points are under each. So I figured it out. There's whatever, five, six, seven. And then I got to thinking about it, and I thought, well, if I do 1,000 words per, that'll end up being 50,000 words because there's 50 bullet points with some stuff in between. And that's where people get over, well, I can't write 50,000 words. And I'm sure you've covered this over and over and over. Like, well, I've already got some of it. A lot of it is, I have 50 stories. And for anybody who doesn't think they have 50 stories, I'll challenge you immediately. And this is probably something Stuart's already covered, but I created a spreadsheet of literally all the different areas of my life. My childhood, and I played basketball growing up, and my family, and my dad and my grandparents, and then I got married, and then I was in college, and I got married, and you got all these different jobs. Either way, you come up with a category of 30 different areas of your life.
Yeah.
And as the stories come to you, if you'll keep the spreadsheet handy, and I've always done that on my phone, I'll just make a little note in there because it's a good story. And then by the time I get done doing that, I've got 100, 150 stories. So at that point, I've got my bullet points, I've got my stories. I just pick the story. For a lot of people, if they have a tough time typing it out, speak it out, and go back and clean it up later. I didn't do that. I actually typed mine out. And in hindsight, I really wish I would have spoken it out. Like I was talking to Stuart and then went back and cleaned it up later. That would have been so much easier. And then, just dropping your bullet points. This is what I learned from that. And here, even feel free at that point to throw in some case studies or some stats and then tie it back together. You'll have 1,000 words immediately.
Yeah.
That's a 3 or 4 page chapter. And the all the reviews, start now, quit later. Go look it up on Amazon. All the reviews. I got all 5-star reviews so far, so nobody go in there and screw it up. But they all, easy to read, learn so much, great stories, because that's how I decided to write it. So I just laid out that outline, dropped stories into each section, and then finished it up with the do's and don'ts for it.
People do themselves such a disservice of equating a book with an academic project or a school project of handing something in and
Um,
it gets marked and red pen comes back. The reality of consumption, particularly, I mean, even more so these days, is that short piece of information that people can consume, get the idea, and move on. I mean, the downside of that is how much of the news stories people just read the headlines and not the details. But the benefit of it is we can leverage that. And as you say,
sure.
50 bullet points, 50 chapters, 50 talking points. Not only is that a comprehensive book that's useful and people can skim through and digest the ones they're interested in
Yeah.
and ignore the ones they don't. But the downstream information, the ability to bridge the content into something else or use it in a different way, it's
Correct.
almost pre-formatted for that purpose. And
It
your
is.
approach of formulaically going through and structuring it in a way that makes it easy to create the bite-sized way of creating it, again, just such a, a straightforward way of creating something that turns out to be bigger, but the actual
Sure.
component pieces are manageable and easy to when you've got a full-time job and a
Yeah.
business and all of the
Yeah,
other
yeah.
things that go
And,
with
and I
it.
don't want anybody thinking this. I said 50,000 words. That may be daunting to some people, and it may not be necessary. A lot of, like the next book I write might be 10 or 20,000. It might just be big enough to have a spine.
Right.
I might be
Yeah.
more aligned with what I'm doing now. What I'm doing now continues to evolve or change. So I don't need to necessarily write a 50,000 word book because I may want to edit the thing from top to bottom, but maybe a 10,000 word
Yeah.
book. And, you can speak
And
it
that's
into existence.
what you just said about it big enough to have a spine. I mean, that I think is the sweet spot. 12,000 or so is
Yeah,
about 100 pages, good enough to get spine text on there. Looks like a real book. And the other benefit in terms of the scorecard book that we refer to a lot, one of the the chapters in there is this idea of beneficial constraints and the idea that constraints are
Ooh.
actually freeing rather
Hmm.
than a problem. And writing something that is more than 20,000 words, I mean, you're really getting into traditional book territory. And psychologically, then you're just comparing yourself with traditional books, and other people are
Sure.
comparing it with traditional books, as opposed to a conversation starting book. So the breadth and scope of it just gets out of hand. And unless it's your full-time job, hey, we've got other things that we could be doing. Having something that is more focused on a niche, on a problem that talks to one individual, one group of individuals, rather than trying to be everything to everyone, so much more effective when the
Hmm.
purpose is to start a conversation and not to sell a book for a $20 list price.
That's right. Uh,
Your
it, well, go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, so your approach, you talked about the three areas that you relate the majority of things back to. Those three areas, are they then represented in the coaching that you do with people? Does that kind of structure of the book relate to
Yes.
the structure of the coaching?
Yes. Yeah. So what I do now is I have a my own community, coaching group, time freedom community, teaching people how to work on their business instead of in their business so they can spend more time with family, friends, and doing the things they love. A lot of the people in my group are still they're mostly are solopreneurs, folks with or 4 or 5 employees, and this is a full-time job, and they're spending too much time at work, or I say at work on their in their business when they know they could do it in a more streamlined way, and they could. I love what you say. They need more constraints that will free them up. But even some of the people are in there, they have full-time jobs and a side hustle, and they're trying to figure out the best way to approach all of this. So when I look at anything, that structure is always to me is marketing, management, financial. It's been that way forever. I must have picked that up when I was getting my MBA, and I don't even know if that's the right way to look at it. That's just how I view the lens, and that
Yeah.
going back what you said, those constraints are amazing because I've had so many other people say, well, there's really 12, 12 spokes on the wheel. Like, I don't want 12. There's too many. We could do three. So
Yeah.
anytime I'm looking at helping people do more by doing less, to get that time freedom, whether they own a business, whether they are doing a side hustle that's trying to grow into a business, it's always in those three realms. Is that and a lot of them it's marketing. They're trying to get to the next level. And I'm not necessarily a marketing genius, but the concept of what I am trying to teach people in both in this book and in my community, well, what's the biggest bang for your buck? What's the thing that you're the best at? And I don't mock this term, but it's not my favorite zone of genius. What's your sweet
Right.
spot that you should be doing that nobody else should do? And then what do you do with the rest? How do you delegate, automate, or better yet, how do you eliminate it? Then when we move from that, we're into management. All right, well, who else is in charge of this? What am I doing? What can we batch, automate, delegate, or better yet, eliminate? And then financially, same concept. Are you looking at a P&L? Are you tracking your subscriptions? Do you have money set aside for the future? Everything goes into those three buckets for me always. And that's really what's helped me, not just use this book to teach people, but as use that concept to create group coaching programs for folks that don't want to check email at 9 p.m. anymore.
Right. Yeah, and it's a disease that really spreads pretty easily. That idea of limitless connections, limitless um, availability for people, it
Hmm.
does get very difficult to switch off. And I can only imagine the challenge. I made the switch from a full-time career to a business as a hard transition. I mean, 15 years or so ago now, but
Sure.
there wasn't really much side hustle side of things. But I do remember for like the 2 years or so before switching, it wasn't so much that it was a side hustle, but it was a side interest. So all of the time outside of the job was focused on marketing related things. Um, Not quite the same pressure of that then being a side hustle, but
Hmm.
it was the time sink. So trying to manage both is definitely a real headache. And then carrying over those full-time management practices of just thinking that more is more into the full-time business. It's yeah, it's
Yeah.
a difficult habit to break.
Yeah.
So the people who you work with in the community, are there any similarities or ideal clients
Hmm.
or people who you work with best and get the best out of the system?
So far, it really seemed like, and I wanted, this is something I would advise anybody. I love having a good niche. And I know it's supposed to be pronounced niche, but I'm born here in the South of the US, so we say things incorrectly. I love having a good niche, but don't rush into the niche if you don't know who you're targeting yet. So I'm trying to ease my way into it, but so far it looks like I've gotten several people, five or fewer employees, and a few are solopreneurs. All of them are service based, and they seem to be in their own coaching space, and they're trying to. Some of them are creating their own communities, and some of them are in the digital marketing space. They're fractional CMOs or digital marketing folks, but they kind of fall into those categories, and that doesn't mean we couldn't take somebody outside of that. But the five and under service based employees seem to be a great fit because the folks that I'm really working with are close to their ideal revenue or at their ideal revenue, like they're making the money or they're close to making the money. But the purpose of starting, we get way into why, almost to a fault. People love a good why. Well, what's your why? Hey, look, most people's whys that I've worked with, they want to help other people. That's that's almost universal, it seems like. And then secondarily, they want some freedom. Come and go, do what I want, when I want, how I want. Now, every other why you'll hear in these big, elaborate, they fit under those two categories. I don't care what they say. It's either to help people or to have some freedom. So I'm working with people that are genuinely out trying to help other people. They're not just trying to sell another commodity or a widget that nobody really needs. They're trying to change people's lives. And then more importantly, they started this side thing that became a full-time thing because they wanted more time with their family. They wanted to pick and choose, not their boss, not their company policy, not their coworkers, pick and choose when they worked, what they worked on, who they worked with, how much money they could or wanted to make. And in doing that, a lot of people unfortunately created a job, and they had a bunch of mini bosses, and they didn't realize that.
Right.
They were acquiescing to client demands left and right, even though the clients weren't really demanding stuff. They just felt that way, or they were allowing other vendor relationships or people they contracted with or projects they started because somebody said, "Hey, you ought to go launch a podcast or you ought to go, post content 7 times a day or do whatever," that didn't really fit with what they were doing, but now they feel trapped in it. And
Yeah.
what I spend a lot of time on with I've rambled on, helping those folks in my niche is to figure out how do we get out of that? How do we identify the best priorities? What are some actionable things, real tools that you can use, real people that you can outsource to, real practices that'll let you get super focused and eliminate the crap you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah. It is such a challenge, isn't it? I love that term of people have created another job rather than a business. This idea that we need to do something, this is something, we should do this. And then once you've been doing this for a period of time, there's no kind of check and balance or revalidation that this is the right this to be doing.
Right.
So it just
We
creates,
just been doing it.
right, yeah, busy work, which doesn't necessarily need to be done. I love the idea of elimination before automation,
Oh, yeah.
but
Elimination's my look. Anybody listening, when you talk about delegation and automation, elimination's got to be the first thing. We had a call yesterday, a coaching call, and going into the time frame we are, holiday period, trying to help them figure out what their goals are. Everybody's got goals for next year, but I don't want 15 goals. You want one goal. Don't create a dozen goals. Eliminate that. Create one. Now, what's the one thing you can do every day that makes hitting that goal inevitable? Great. We're going to do one new thing every day. We got to eliminate other things. Well, who else do it? Nobody. Nobody. We're not gonna delegate it. There's some things you're doing that we can just quit doing and replace it with a new thing that's going to make that 2025 goal hit, whether no matter what.
yeah, I don't know if it translates into the business, the solopreneur, small business world quite so directly, but I'm reminded of previous jobs. So my previous corporate background was in IT and kind of like middle management type layer. Um, so you'd be dealing with a lot of other people's careers, and there's this fixation with everything that they do in the way that they do it is urgent and important and critical to the
Uh,
success of the whole organization. I haven't thought about this for, as I say, 15 years or so. So I can't think that how directly it translates to the solopreneur side of things, but I think it must do because it's a psychological hang up. So this idea that the way that you do it and the importance to the organization is critical. And if you didn't do it in this particular way, everything would fall apart. But
Hmm.
then, as soon as that person decided that they needed to leave to a different job, or someone else in the organization left, the amount of stuff that was done that was critical, that was inconsequential, that didn't
Yeah.
interrupt the operations, that didn't make a difference, it really speaks to this idea that it's 90% of it is just a psychological game of whatever part of your brain is telling you that this is how it needs to be done or this is why it's so critical. But
W-
separating that from the actual needle moving difference,
Yeah.
it's your mind can mess with you.
Hey, Sheila just left. She quit today. So who's going to take over her stuff? Let's circle back next week. Let's have another meeting. We'll talk about it then. And then you figure out like she's been gone 6 weeks. Ain't nobody been doing her job, and ain't a thing in this place changed. I mean,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
I don't know. You coming from IT? Sure. Have you seen the movie Office Space?
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
purposely
exactly.
Oh my God, I purposely rewatched it the other day after the wife and kids were all gone, and man, I can quote almost every single bit of it. It is almost 20 plus years old and is still relevant today as it was back then. But that's the gist of it, is the
Right.
majority of what we're doing in a full-time quote unquote job. You're doing about 2 hours real work per week. The rest of it is just pushing around papers. And then unfortunately, we carry that over into our own businesses. We keep some terrible habits, and
Yeah.
one of which, outside of writing a book, well, could be related to writing a book. We keep anybody's got an electronic calendar. We all live and die by it, but we keep them these 15-minute blocks, which is nuts. And you're taking basically every to do you can ever pop in your head, and you're filling the gaps, and you're just
Right.
filling the gaps all week long with no intention, with no purpose of what I'm trying to accomplish is just a full calendar. So I must be busy, and busy must be good. And it's usually not the case. So relate this back to writing a book. You don't write a book in 15-minute chunks. And I know people have said, well, look, 10 minutes here, 5 minutes there. Maybe I need to write a book in like an hour, hour and a half chunks so I can get into the flow of it. But yeah, we're a lot of that stuff we've done in the past. We just drag it over, and it's just it didn't have to be there.
Yeah, and that's the real benefit. You were talking before about needing to get external help in even your own business when it's the business of what you do, like getting an external coach when you're a coach. People would
Yeah.
think, well, why don't
Oh
you
my
just do it
gosh.
yourself? But that psychological break of being able to um, I'm sure you see it on the coaching calls. We see it on our coaching calls. It's much easier for people to be there and give valuable comments on other people's businesses because you don't bring all of the baggage of the execution to it. You're not,
That's
oh,
right.
this is a good idea, but, or I would do that, but, which it's easy to do for your own stuff because you're too close to it. So definitely that separation and being able to look at someone else's work, that's the benefit of community as much as it is getting the direct feedback for your own stuff, because I
That's
think it
correct.
rise to the bigger possibility. And then it's just a case of, okay, connecting it to yourself, which I mean, there's a separate challenge there, but at least being in that community, you're really seeing that peer group of other problems that sparks some things for yourself.
I love it. I've been doing one-on-one coaching forever, and I still like doing one-on-one coaching, but I can tell you the difference between one-on-one and a group is a world apart. And me doing that on my own, I've discovered me being in other groups, just like what you just said. I can kind of see here what everybody else is going through, and I can get different angles, and they'll ask questions that I should have even thought to ask. But yeah, it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah. I really like the idea of the way that you structured the book together into the bite-sized pieces. You were talking about this idea of bridging the topics into a modern day context. I mean, the book's only it's not that old, so it's not like it
Right.
was written years
Right.
and years ago. But still, the context immediately changes from the day that you write it. We just
Oh
wrapped up
yeah.
a book this morning. I was talking to the authors and saying, "Hey, this is great. The next step is that all of these things are going to change, and as soon as you look at it, you're going to see something that you want to change."
Yep.
From the point of view of the book itself, just keep a running list going. And once you get that to a reasonable size, then make some changes. Otherwise, you'll
Hmm.
drive yourself mad. But also try and resist the temptation to make changes and instead bridge into what happens today. So your approach, the 50 or so steps, bullets that you've got in there, you touched on it briefly, this opportunity to bridge into current conversations. So the book being the anchor point to refer back to, do you find that it is then easier to create other content because you've got this anchor point of information. So rather than having to write something from scratch,
Oh
you
yeah.
can just talk about the difference and relate it to today, as opposed
Yeah.
to reinventing the wheel.
And you're 100% right. As soon as you finish it, it's like anybody that's ever had a house built. They're taking you on a tour like this is what we did with the kitchen. Now the bathroom. So here's what I wish we'd have done with the bathroom. And the bathroom's beautiful, but they wish they had a different countertop. Okay, whatever. Uh, but same with the book. As soon as I got done, there was two, three things immediately I didn't like this, and the bullet points weren't right there, and I should have said it this way. And oh, I think I told that story twice in the book, and the editor didn't catch it. Whatever. But in still being able to use it, this book on starting while you have a full-time job, but then now I'm coaching people on how to, work on the business instead of in the business. All that stuff's very relatable. And I very often pull from that book. I'm still creating new content, still writing some new stuff. I have new thoughts, but it's many times over when I'm trying to figure out how to relay a point to somebody, like, man, I've already written this. I've already told this story. And if it's a online communication, I swear I've copied and pasted that thing directly into an email for coaching or to a DM to get somebody's attention or for a post. And you might not even have to change much, but if you have to make a couple of quick changes, that's way quicker than having to start from scratch. So yeah, this is an anchor point that I use for a lot of different aspects of my coaching practice now, not just in coaching, but for marketing. And then it even helps me spark additional new things I want to say or do.
Yeah, that leverageability of it, the fact that the worst case scenario that we see is sometimes you kind of work with people through the process and then you can kind of see it in their face. They get to the finish line, even with our process where we try and make it as easy as possible to create the
Hmm.
thing. You still see some people get to the finish line and it's kind of like, oh, thank God for that. I can now move on to the next thing. When finishing the book itself is really just the starting point. Now you've
That's
got
the
all these
beginning, baby.
opportunities to use it. But at least once it's done, you have got the opportunity to use it in many, many
Yeah.
ways, and it's an asset that is much bigger than if those same words were just a collection of blog posts or collection of emails. The fact that
Oh,
it is
sure.
brought together in this particular way as a book has an outsized value perception out there in the world. So such a great thing to put the time and effort into doing, because it's got this long, long life downstream. I actually just talk about long, long lives of books. Um, I just bought my wife a Christmas present. I'm assuming that she's not going to listen to this, at least not before Christmas. Um, and it was a book that she had as a child. So like in the
Oh.
1970s, like a kid's book. But this was like
Hmm.
a physical copy of that original book, which is now coming on to 50 years old. I mean, I think we were talking when we had that initial conversation. I was describing one of the other clients, Lee from one of the earlier podcasts. He said he had some printed copies and then just put contact stickers on the back, and we're
Yep.
leaving him in doctor's surgeries, like this real gonzo marketing approach of just print some stickers off, because people don't throw them away. So
People
not only is
don't
it an
throw books
outsized
away.
asset, it's also got an outsized life.
Yeah.
Yeah, so many reasons. Um, where's the best place for people to find out more about what you do? I think the coaching community that you've got and this sweet spot of small business solopreneurs looking to make that time-based transition away from a job to a business. That's the sweet spot of a lot of people who are listening here. So where's a good place for people to find out more and follow along?
Easiest place is to go to my website, yourcharlesalexander.com. Better yet, if you'll scroll to the bottom in the footer, I've got a nice little toolkit that's very, very curated, so to speak. I've got a ton of materials and I only drop the best stuff in there. One of them's all the different AI tools that you can use. And one of them's got a little cheat sheet to help you immediately save 2 hours a week. And then there's a third thing that I couldn't suddenly can't think of, but I know that it's great because I put it in there. But that's the best place. I'm on LinkedIn. Charles Alexander. I'll be the guy that looks like Stewart, but I'll be me.
Just with a different accent.
Yeah, but that's I don't want to give you 50 different things. Obviously there's a book
Darling.
and there's a podcast, blah blah. Go to yourcharlesalexander.com. You'll find everything you need.
Perfect. And I'll link directly to those both from the podcast player and from the website so
Great.
people can just kind of scroll down and click the button and go straight through. But I really wanted to make sure that people have got that opportunity to follow along because I think not only is it a great use case for a book and see what you've done in order to start that conversation. So from people looking behind the scenes and thinking about doing it themselves, great example, but also
Yeah.
just the framework that you've got to help people make this transition and get back some of those hours because it's like housework. I'm looking around my office here, and
Yeah, you
over
are.
Christmas, I really need to make some effort in here. But it's those little bits of cruft that build up and build up and build up, and all of a sudden you look around and think, "Holy cow! I'm like 10 hours here that I really don't need to do.
Yeah.
I can eliminate." So, yeah, highly recommend people follow through those links and check out what you do.
Sounds
Um,
good, sir.
I appreciate it. Real good conversation. Again, just to link back to how we started. I mean, this was a LinkedIn connection. We didn't know each other before. Opportunity to start that conversation in a useful way, like human beings. Had a great chat, and then that bridged into the podcast. So, books can do the same thing. Just that opportunity to start the conversation. Forget that it's a book as such, and think about it as a conversation starter. And that I think is the jumping off point.
Very good.
Fantastic. Well, have a great holiday. Everyone listening, have a great holiday too. I think this will release probably just in the new year, so I actually hope you had a great holiday.
Ah,
But the internet time going on there. But yeah, thanks again for your time, Charles. I'll make sure that there's links through to your stuff in the notes below, so people can just one click through. And everyone, thanks for listening. We'll see you in the next one.